Hi there, Casey here from worthyandwell.com. Recently, I attended the Dietitians of Canada National Conference. Hundreds of dietitians from across the country come together to learn, grow, and develop their skills. So I attended a number of sessions, but today I want to share with you the highlights from 3 in particular that I think might be of value to you. The first topic that we'll cover is all about the microbiome. And if you have no idea what that is, it has to do with the many microorganisms that exist in your body. The second topic, how low sleep and using your brain can impact how much you weigh. And lastly, I want to share with you some insights from a talk I attended on binge eating disorder. Let's get right to it. The first talk that we'll discuss was called The Microbiome, the Next Frontier for Dietitians. It was presented by Natasha Haskey, who did an amazing job of really showing us the research and practical applications of microbiome. I learned so much from this session, so I want to really summarize and give you the big bang for your buck ideas here. First, let's start by defining the microbiome. This is the entire habitat or home, including microorganisms, their genomes, and environmental conditions. So something I learned that wasn't really apparent to me is that the microbiome includes not just the gut. The gut is what we often think about, but it includes the skin, the mouth, the genital area. Microorganisms include bacteria, viruses, and other types. In the gut specifically, there are 30 to 400 trillion bacteria, a ton, making up about 2 kilograms of mass. The number one take-home message that I want to share with you today is this: diversity and richness in the gut microbiota is the key to greater health. So what can we do, what can we consume to increase the richness and diversity of this bacterial culture in the gut? There's a few things. Step 1 is to know the factors that contribute to this healthy gut bacteria. This is where we think about probiotics and prebiotics. Probiotics are live, active cultures when administered in appropriate amounts have some sort of health benefit. Prebiotics are kind of like the food for the probiotics or for the healthy bacteria. So prebiotics include things like different types of fibers, different types of carbohydrates. Research shows that choosing more of a plant-centered diet is going to help to promote helpful bacteria in the gut. So of course, choosing real whole food versus processed food actually not only helps to feed your cells, but feeds the bacteria that reside in your gut. You might also consider supplementing with probiotic-rich foods like yogurt, kefir, kombucha, and other fermented foods, though we still don't know exactly how much of the live active culture can consist in these foods. Supplementation might be a way to increase the richness and diversity of the bacteria in your gut. If you're choosing to take a probiotic supplement for general health, it's wise to take different types of probiotics so that you get more variety and higher numbers of those probiotics. So that's my summary, my nutrition roundup of the microbiome lecture. The second topic I'd love to discuss with you today is the effect of sleep deprivation and cognitive activity on weight. We're really talking about what happens when we don't sleep enough and also when we work our brains too hard, and how does that impact our weight. This presentation was given by Dr. Angelo Tremblay, a professor and also a consultant to the Canadian Obesity Network. He started his talk by discussing the impact of globalization. In particular, the push towards more profit, greater performance, and productivity, which often leads to more stress, less sleep, and more knowledge-based work, or more kind of brain-based intellectual work. Here are the take-home messages. Low sleep is associated with greater risk for overweight and obesity, as well as the chronic diseases that align with those conditions. In addition, when you do that cognitive-based work, so for example, a task like a reading and writing task or a learning task or a meeting, people who were subjected to those tasks ate more afterward compared to their controls. So as you can see, as we get into this culture of working harder, stressing more, sleeping less, these factors can contribute to weight gain over time and the trends that we see in overweight and obesity. So let's dive straight into the practical applications. Although sleep needs are very individual, it's commonly recommended that adults get around 7 to 9 hours per night. factors that are going to contribute to the sleep include eating a healthy diet, exercising, as well as reducing some of your screen time before bed and taking time to do some relaxation activities. When it comes to the cognitive-based work, well, you and I both know that this is probably going to still be a part of our lives, especially if we want to do meaningful work and have an impact on the world. But what if we combined the work that we do, say meetings, with going for a walk? So taking something that typically produces a little bit more stress, leading us to then consume more food, combining that with something that is relaxing, that helps to enhance better sleep, just to counter those effects. So just a couple practical applications for you there. Again, there was so much more that I learned in this session, but I hope that was helpful for you. And finally, I want to share with you some highlights from the binge eating disorder talk presented by dietitian Anne-Marie Mitchell. I know she's a French-speaking Canadian, so she probably would add in a really beautiful French flair to how she says her name, but that's my English version. Binge eating disorder has relatively recently been considered a mental disorder in the Diagnostic and Statistical Manual for Mental Disorders, also known as the DSM. And we're on to the 5th version. So in the most recent version, binge eating disorder, or BED, is classified there. I'd like to share with you the diagnostic criteria for binge eating disorder based on the DSM-5 guidelines. But a little bit of a disclaimer: by no means is my intention for you to self-diagnose or to take what I'm sharing with you today and apply it right away. Absolutely check in with your medical professionals and your doctor according to your unique needs. But let's talk about the diagnostic criteria. So I have some notes here that I'm going to check in with. A consumption of a large amount of food in a discrete period of time. So for example, a large amount of food in 2 hours. So that's one part of the criteria. The second part is a sense of loss of control over eating during the episode. So almost like you check out and are on autopilot, and that's impacting your eating in that moment. So that's part A, those two pieces. Part B consists of 5 different criteria, and if 3 of them are met, that would be considered relevant in the diagnosis of this condition. So association with 3 of the following. The first, eating much more rapidly than normal, eating until feeling uncomfortably full, eating large amounts of food when not feeling physically hungry, eating alone because of embarrassment of how much one is eating, feeling disgusted with oneself, depressed, or very guilty afterward. So that's criteria B. Next, we have criteria C, so marked distress over the binge eating episode. So it causes distress, it makes you feel uncomfortable, it makes you feel guilty or shameful after the eating episode. D, binge eating happens on average greater than 1 time per week, consistently for a 3-month period. And criteria E is binge eating is not associated with use of other compensatory behavior. So by that I mean purging, so vomiting or over-exercising, for example. So to summarize, the diagnostic criteria means that section A is met, 3 of the criteria from section B, section C, D, and E are also met. I have a resource below with some key summary points from these sessions from the conference that I welcome you to download. So all of these little points will be there in that handout. I think the biggest take-home message in the conversation around binge eating disorder is actually what the key goal of treatment should be. So often people reach out for support or have this diagnosis of binge eating disorder, and because it is often associated with overweight or obesity, people's goals tend to be to lose weight. And really the number one goal should be to reduce the binge eating episodes, because that is the behavior that is most problematic and that can be managed, or that something can be done around that. So reducing binge eating episodes is the number one goal. When it comes to practical applications, I think the first take home is, if you're concerned about binge eating as a behavior or concerned that you may fit the criteria for diagnosis for binge eating disorder, it's really important to reach out for medical help and professional help. And ideally, an interdisciplinary team is where it's at. So one that includes a medical doctor, a psychologist or psychiatrist, a dietitian, for example, maybe an exercise physiologist, and perhaps even other members of the healthcare team. That's going to be most effective. From a nutritional standpoint, one of the really key parts of nutrition intervention is actually mindful eating and learning about body awareness and body cues, as well as consistency in eating throughout the day. So various practical applications to help people who are dealing with binge eating disorder or binge eating episodes. And I think the role of the dietitian is a really important one to help to teach about relationship with food and body. Okay, so there you have it. A little bit of a summary on 3 key talks, one about the microbiome, one about the effect of sleep and brain activity on weight, and lastly, binge eating disorder, a bit of a summary and some practical applications there. So below on the blog page, that's at worthyandwell.com/DC highlights, you will find a resource that you can download that has just a summary of these key points, just a little cheat sheet for you to take home and take a look at. So I hope you enjoyed this. Let me know if any questions or comments are popping up, and don't forget to grab that cheat sheet. Talk to you soon.